Hello everyone, welcome to Straight Talks Have Fun. Just when I decide to not record a separate episode for a particular race, it turns out to be a banger. But I should have anticipated Hungary because it's always an epic race. It's one of the most underrated tracks on the calendar and one of my favorites. Still, I was going to club it with Belgium, and then Oscar Piastri decided to break his duck of wins. Now, Budapest is known to produce first race wins. We have had Damon Hill, Fernando Alonso, Jensen Button, Heikki Kovalainen, Esteban Ocon, and now Oscar Piastri. Finally, Oscar Piastri is a Grand Prix winner. Finally, there is no need to say that Oscar Piastri has won a race, but it was a sprint race in Qatar. That doesn't really count. No, he is a Grand Prix winner, finally. And in a second season itself. So that is a huge deal. Yeah, McLaren coming good at the right time as his career started. So there's a bit of luck involved there. You can say Norris did not have that luxury. He had to wait for several years, but that's how F1 goes at times. But yeah, about the race, obviously there's a particular reason I wanted to record a separate episode on the Hungarian GP because a lot happened. And McLaren, they finished 1-2, clearly the fastest car at the moment. They finished 1-2 in this race, and yet they have fumbled their race strategy. I don't remember saying that about the team, even with Ferrari, that they fumbled their race strategy, their race management, even after finishing 1-2. Shambolic is the word comes to mind when we go through what happened, the way McLaren managed their drivers. Oscar Piastri is leading the race. He should be prioritized. And they put Norris first. And Norris almost turned into a complete. In that final stint, Norris had no reason to not give Oscar the lead back. It was the team's mistake. But he was so stubborn, it could have been a horrific disaster for McLaren had Norris not given that race lead back. They say all's well that ends well, but McLaren need to go back and have a stern debrief about this. And they certainly would have, because Piastri deserved that win. He had ruled that race for two-thirds of it, and then because of McLaren's error, he is in second. Norris naturally won't give the lead, understandable. And people would say the champion drivers like Verstappen, Hamilton, Schumacher won't have given the lead back. Well, that doesn't make Norris a less of a champion driver. He can still be world champion tomorrow, and he doesn't need to behave like those past champions just because they wouldn't have given it back. There's no need for him to behave like that. Unfortunately, he realized it with 2 laps to go. Fortunately, he realized how good of a teammate Oscar has been to him, and it was his maiden Grand Prix win. But yeah, besides that, a lot to discuss in this race. Hamilton and Verstappen, an eternal love story. They just can't seem to get away from each other. Whenever they come on track with equalish cars, they are always there to collide with each other. Everyone was anticipating something would happen when Hamilton and Verstappen were racing each other. It was a result of Verstappen being angry too. He was quite frustrated. The most we have seen Verstappen frustrated over the past 2.5 years. Because yeah, he's the one who's carrying them at the moment. And when he's not getting the best strategy, the best car, he would be frustrated. Because at the other end, you have Sergio Perez. Another Q1 crash for him. He recovered well in the race, but it is costing Red Bull. It is costing Red Bull a lot of points. So I'll talk about that too. But let's get into that final stint and the chaos that happened between Piastri, his race engineer, Norris, and his race engineer. It was the most active radio conversation we have heard at any race this season, perhaps. So let's get into it how Piastri's win almost got ruined by Norris. Now, this was the first time Piastri was in a prime position to secure his first race win. His maiden Grand Prix win. No, he not his first race win. But yeah, anyways, great qualifying. He missed pole by a whisker, 200ths of a second. That is as close as it could get. So there was no scope for McLaren that Norris was in pole, he gets the priority. And Piastri further amplified that when he got a top notch race start. Verstappen, Norris, Piastri were three wide going into turn one. It's a very underrated moment. Not many are talking about this. They were three wide going into turn one, and everyone was focusing upon Norris and Verstappen getting tangled. Verstappen went off. They did not touch, but Verstappen said that Norris forced him off and etc. etc. Here, Piastri was so calm and cool and navigated that corner as safely as possible and deservedly got the lead. And from there, he did not look back. He ruled that race, as I said earlier. It was all Oscar Piastri, and he looked set to take that win without any issues. McLaren 1 2 was on the cards, and they still got it, but the way they got it, it felt as if the first two stints of the race and the final stint of the race, they were two separate races. McLaren just ruined it at that second pit stop. They completely ruined it. The moment everyone saw Norris pit first, the race had completely changed. The undercut is very powerful in Hungary and it's a tough track to overtake. Norris got that 2 lap of head start and he eventually got the lead. There was no way Piastri was going to come back at Norris then because they have such similar pace. Both Norris and Piastri are at the same level, 200ths of a second in qualifying. That speaks volumes about their pace level, their performance level. They are not Verstappen and Perez. They are not Hamilton and Bottas. That one is superior than the other. They are as equal as two teammates can be. So Norris getting the lead and getting that 3-4 second of buffer, that was the race win for him. So there's no way he's going to give that away. And fair enough, he would not want to give that away. That's not how a winning mindset works. That's not how a champion's mindset would work. He does not want to be the nice guy over there so that someone comes and throws him over. But here, McLaren should have been firm and they should have been clear in their choice. Piastri is leading the race, so he should get the priority, knowing that the undercut is powerful over here. But they still did not prioritize him. That's been the issue. They have been messing up, butchering up Piastri's race strategy. They did the same in Silverstone this year, last year. There were all kinds of memes on social media about Multi 21 as well. Had Norris not given the lead back, he would have faced a backlash similar to Vettel. So that's one good thing I would say, that Norris realized he was being stubborn, he was being unreasonable. He understood the importance, the gravity of the team game, being a good teammate, because Piastri has been nothing but a good teammate to him. But the radio chatter that was going leading up to that moment, when Norris finally backed off to let Piastri pass, oh, the sheer drama of it. They were begging him, they were pleading with him, they were almost blackmailing him, saying, please give the race lead back. That's not the explicit words they said, but the indirect pleading and begging that was going on. You're using your tires too much. I'm trying to protect you. Please back off. Please let Oscar pass. Damn. It is not something we have heard in a long, long time. And again, it's not fair on Norris too, because why would he give the lead away?
I can't, it's broken! It's broken!
It was McLaren's own doing. It was their error. And they were asking a favor of him, play the team game and let Piastri win. I would say he was being stubborn, perhaps not as unreasonable. He had his reasons. Why would he give away that lead? Because he's followed the team's instructions. He has pit when they have asked him to. They wanted to cover the undercut from Hamilton, which did not make sense. But again, that was the root cause of it that caused all this chaos. But yeah, it was just awfully managed by them. Just one mistake of pitting Norris before Piastri. If they did not do that, all this drama could have been avoided. It was awfully managed by McLaren. They have to review their race strategy execution. But yeah, fair play by Norris to finally give that back. I would want to criticize him, but he did the right thing, so I will praise him because he deserves that. As much as Piastri deserves the race win, executing an awesome race, his race pace was so sublime in those first two stints. Equally, Norris deserves the credit for playing the team game. Piastri has followed team orders last year, this year, when Norris was supposed to get podiums. To maximize the team results, he has moved over for Norris. So, just in case Norris gets close in the championship fight this year against Verstappen, I'm sure Piastri will repay the favor. When it matters, like Perez did for Verstappen in 21, if it comes down to defending Verstappen, holding him back, Oscar Piastri is going to be damn loyal to Lando Norris now. And that's what McLaren wanted. That is the end result they would want out of this entire ordeal that has happened. However ugly and symbolic it may look on their part, Norris obliging to those team orders could eventually help him in the championship, with Piastri playing a crucial role maybe. Let's see, I'm just saying, but I've been saying a lot of stuff, I've been predicting a lot of stuff. Piastri's win, McLaren being the fastest car, McLaren's race execution needing a big improvement. So yeah, things are getting right. So maybe Norris getting Piastri's help in the championship. That also perhaps comes true. But you're playing the devil's advocate because this is something I could talk on for a while now. And I've thought a lot about it. Was Norris too much of a nice guy there? An alternate thought that came to my mind during the race itself, that perhaps he should not cede that place. Perhaps he should not let Piastri pass. The champion's mindset again. What Vettel did, what Hamilton did, what Schumacher did, what Verstappen has done and would do in such a scenario, they would stay firm. They stayed firm. And yet, there is the argument I made earlier that he doesn't need to behave that way. He can still be a champion. But then the logic of pace comes into play. I mentioned earlier, Norris and Piastri are so close to each other. Their pace is quite similar. When we talk about Verstappen and Perez, Verstappen is clearly faster. He is miles ahead. The same was the case with Hamilton and Bottas. Bottas perhaps was a bit closer, but still Hamilton had 2-3 tenths in his pocket. When we talk about Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, once again, Mark Webber was a really good driver, but Vettel had the edge there. 2 or 3 tenths he had the edge there. So there's a reason Vettel won 4 championships while Webber did not. There was a bit of luck involved too. Webber could have been lucky in 2010, even in 2012 maybe. In their cases, even in Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, Schumacher was clearly the faster driver. So when we talk about these champion drivers who may not have ceded the place in that what if scenario, in the same scenario, if we put them, they won't give the lead back. Norris and Piastri's case is way different than them because they are so competitively equal on performance, on raw pace. Norris did not have a justification there, so perhaps he did the right thing. McLaren know that, Norris knows that, Piastri knows that. It was a good call by Norris to give that lead back. I still don't understand why did McLaren not prioritize Piastri, who was leading the race. But yeah, that's their horrific, shambolic race management. And I said in the mid-season review itself, they need to work upon it. A lot of work is needed. If Red Bull close the gap again, Red Bull recover their performance, McLaren will be in trouble because of their dodgy race strategies and the awful execution we've seen in Hungary. So yeah, fingers crossed. McLaren sort the issues out, and Norris and Piastri, hopefully the relationship stays intact with no tensions due to this race. But yeah, again, it was an Oscar worthy drama. And it was once again a McLaren teammates drama in Hungary. There's some sort of a connection with Hungary and McLaren drivers having a mess of a race or a mess of a race weekend. Some sort of tensions always come in. It's happened twice, but I think that still counts, I would say. Alonso and Hamilton back in 2007, 17 years later, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri. And I said this in the previous two episodes too. McLaren need to be firm with it. They need to be firm with their communication. They were asking and requesting Norris. They asked about the tire choice between soft and medium tires to Norris in Silverstone. So it's the same issue. It's quite recurring. They want to keep an air of niceness for some reason and not be ruthless and firm. So I think at the sharp end of the grid, they need to understand that they can't all be hunky dory all the time. And Nico Rosberg, the man who's experienced a lot of these battles, a lot of these strategy errors and strategy issues, teammate battles with Lewis Hamilton. So he gave Andrea Stella, the McLaren boss, some recommendations that they need to be firm with their driver communication. He was clear with it. Be firm with the drivers. If you don't, then they won't comply. There will be a gray area that they will try to exploit. And he quoted one radio call to Norris saying that please give the position back to Oscar at your convenience. So the at your convenience was rather diplomatic and had a requesting tone rather than team orders. And that sort of put McLaren on the back foot. He was spot on with it. It sort of showed the hesitancy and it gave Norris the control. And understandable, they are sort of a young team, but then they have been in F1 for so long. And the issues with driver management aren't new. Two equally fast teammates at McLaren, there have always been teammate issues. Alonso, Hamilton, they had Hakkinen and David Coulthard back in the day. They had Senna and Prost back in the day. Coulthard and Hakkinen had a good relationship, obviously. And Coulthard has moved over for Mika Hakkinen a lot of times, several times. So there was a lot of parallels going on with this race. Of course, I mentioned about the Alonso Hamilton thing back in 2007. That was in qualifying, of course. But McLaren and the issues with teammates and driver management is something that is quite an age-old problem. We don't talk about it enough. If Ferrari have the issues with pit stop and tire strategy specifically, driver management is McLaren's issue. They can be called the clowns of it, perhaps. Because why not? Ferrari gets so much of slack. So yeah, McLaren should also deserve a bit of slack there. But yeah, besides their driver management, as Rosberg said that they need to be firm, they really need to resolve their strategy and execution. It is getting far too repetitive now that they make the same mistakes. And now that they have lesser variables perhaps to focus upon, they are not fighting with two or three teams in the midfield. They have the fastest car and they will most likely be fighting with Red Bull or Mercedes. Maybe both come at the same time like in Silverstone. But still, given they have the fastest car now, it's about managing their race. The more they mind their own business and pull off a clean race strategy, execute a clean race, timing the pit stops right, choosing the right tires, prioritizing the correct driver, there is no stopping McLaren. If they want to win consistently and smoothly without such chaos, that even if they have got 1-2, they are being criticized, they need to sort out their race strategy execution. That is the only issue right now I see with McLaren. Driver management and communication is basically a part of it. Once they sort out the execution properly, it all falls in place. But yeah, once again I'll mention, Norris obliging, Piastri owes the world to him. When the time comes to fight for the championship, Piastri is going to lay down his life for Norris. Because had Norris not given the lead back, another parallel I thought about is Austria 2002. That was the reverse of it. Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello being ordered to move over for Schumacher's championship gain, but the whole concept was same, and it was a massive PR disaster for Ferrari. So 2 decades later, McLaren got saved by that disaster by Norris not having a brain fade to be an and completely just ruin that race for Piastri, for McLaren, for everybody. They would have still got a 1-2. Norris would have in fact closed the lead in the championship, but that would have been so horrible, and he would have lost Piastri's loyalty too. It would have strained their relationship a lot. This may also have strained their relationship perhaps, but I think Norris has understood and he's showing enough maturity to accept this and saying fair enough, it was his maiden race win and he deserved that win. So from his end there was not a strong enough argument to retain that race win. And thankfully McLaren realized their blunder. They may not admit it publicly, but they know that they made a blunder by pitting Norris first. They did not realize the consequence that Oscar Piastri would have faced when they were covering Hamilton with Norris. Basically, they begged Norris to mend it, to mend that error for them, and it has tarnished Piastri's maiden win for sure. I would say that it was an Oscar worthy race win. It gave so much drama and a memorable one for him, definitely, but memorable one for the wrong reasons, perhaps. Now, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton. What a love story. Those two are just made for each other. They can't just seem to get away from each other even after so many years. It was the epic rivalry resuming in Hungary, and since the lap they started racing each other, there was a feeling something is going to happen because Verstappen was so frustrated. And then he's fighting his arch rival, Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion. So there was the feeling that they were going to come together some or the other way because they're fighting for a podium place. Verstappen was in that podium place in the first stint. They pitted him, and Hamilton got that undercut at the first round of pit stops. Then he was stuck all through the second stint, chasing him and trying to get back into the podium place. And then the second time as well, Hamilton pitted first, and at that time, even Leclerc undercut him. So it was double frustration for Verstappen because he had to pass Leclerc and Hamilton both to get to the podium. And there was so much of angry radio rants. I said earlier, we haven't seen Verstappen so furious and angry in the past 2.5 years. The car balance, the strategy, everything was going wrong for him, and he's still in the top 5. So those are some real high standards by Red Bull and Verstappen, that he's complaining and he's just absolutely unleashing his wrath on team radio. Props to his race engineer, GP, Champiero Lambiase. Hats off, man. The amount of patience that guy has to tolerate and stay calm while Verstappen is just ranting and unleashing himself, and he's just completely lashing out without any control. The amount of patience and the amount of resilience he has to stay firm on his stand and on his views on how the situation's unfolding. I don't think any other race engineer would be able to handle Verstappen like GP does. Hats off, Gianpiero Lambiase. And then the inevitable happened. Hamilton and Verstappen racing each other in equalish cars. They had to come together. They just had to come together. But yeah, the contact in turn 1, classic Hamilton Verstappen action. And it was Max's mistake. He locked up. So there is no scope of blaming Hamilton there that he turned in or anything. Could he have done anything different? I don't think so, because he was taking his normal line. It's Verstappen who's dived down the inside uncontrollably, and he's the one who's locked up and he was going in a different trajectory. But rewind to Baku 21. There it was Hamilton and Perez. Perez and Vettel were going in the direction of the track, Hamilton was going off. He locked up, he went straight. Perez, Vettel, and everyone went into turn 1, into turn 2. They were on to finish the race, and Hamilton dropped down the order. So it was the same thing. Verstappen went straight on, he locked up. And that was the moment all his frustration just peaked, I would say, because, yeah, he would say Hamilton moved under braking and everything, but yeah, there was no point of it because even if he had moved under braking, there was no point of getting into an argument because he had locked up. There was no chance the stewards would have seen it otherwise. Eventually, they saw it as a racing incident. So that's good, and it was a racing incident. There was nothing either of them could have done to avoid it. And if you look at the footage, Hamilton perhaps wanted to wait a minute there, perhaps wait a second, and then go because he saw Verstappen coming out of control. He saw him lock up. So the instinctive reaction in his mind would have been, okay, I don't want to collide with him. If that corner wasn't a right-handed hairpin, I don't think Hamilton would have wanted to turn in at that point. Maybe he could have just tried to do something to avoid that contact and they could have passed cleanly. Because Verstappen was anyways going straight, that was the only avoidable action Hamilton could have taken. Just to avoid even the front right tire touching Verstappen's rear tire. That is the only thing I could think of. Avoid that contact completely because Verstappen was anyways going straight on. Just like Perez and Vettel avoided Hamilton in Baku. But again, the contact was just inevitable because in the heat of the moment, it's a split second. How much could Hamilton do and think? So yeah, it's fair enough, whatever he did, there was no chance of avoiding that contact. And Verstappen, why did he go for such a dive bomb? There are multiple reasons to it because he's been carrying that team. I said earlier, Perez has been nowhere near the front of the grid since Miami. He hasn't got a single top 5 finish since Miami. And Verstappen is the one who's carrying them, who's keeping them afloat in the championship, in both championships. So when he doesn't get a good enough strategy, the car balance is not there, and they had got upgrades this weekend. Perhaps the biggest upgrade of the season for them, and it did not work to give them enough pace. McLaren were the fastest car by a margin. They got a 1-2 in qualifying, 1-2 in the race. And here's Red Bull, they don't have the performance, the car balance is not there, and then they botch up the strategy as well. Of course, Verstappen would be pissed off. Why not? So, yeah, the dive bomb had to happen. Perhaps he wanted to get into the podium position at least, consolidate something, to salvage something out of Hungary. But yeah, the collision with Hamilton just worsened his scenario. And he dropped down to P5. The car went airborne, so he had to recover that, and while he recovered that, Leclerc also overtook him. He was lucky he did not get a DNF, but the car did not pick up damage because the way the car went airborne and came down, that could have been significant damage. But yeah, Red Bull really need to sort the issues out. The next weekend is in Belgium. Long straights. Red Bull have a straight line speed advantage. Will that help their cause? Maybe. But if they struggle in Belgium too, oh man, Red Bull is in deep, deep trouble then. I refer to the 2012 season while talking about Red Bull in the mid season review. They have done this, they haven't had the fastest car. They have struggled in 2012 and 2010. They did not have the fastest car back then and still won both championships. Vettel won the championship back then. Can Verstappen do that this year? He's got enough of a buffer in the championship at the moment, 76 points. Back then, Vettel was the one chasing Fernando Alonso. He was more than 40 points behind Alonso. And I remember at the time of Belgium, Alonso was in that major crash with Roman Grosjean and everybody. And Vettel had a good drive in Belgium to P2 to reduce Alonso's lead, and that sort of was the springboard for Vettel and Red Bull to come back in that championship. So hopefully, for Red Bull's sake, for Verstappen's sake, the Belgian GP is a moment of comeback, because if they struggle in Belgium, then the second half of the season would be quite long for them. Zandvoort, Monza, Singapore, Baku, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know about the Drivers' Championship, but McLaren are surely taking the Constructors' fight head on. And they could even take the lead by the time we roll up in Singapore, maybe. So let's see what happens. But there is a title fight on hand, and Red Bull need to sort the issues out. Now, I talked about Verstappen and Hamilton and Red Bull having a title fight on. The other side of the Red Bull's garage is something that is a big bone of contention at the moment. Now, it was a decent recovery for Perez in the race. He qualified P16. From there, he went to P7. Given Verstappen finished P5, it was a decent recovery, I would say, but another Q1 exit and that to a crash is just not helping his cause. He's got the 2 year extension recently, but I just don't see why are Red Bull retaining him and backing him so much. Is his sponsorship money that huge of a deal that they have to tolerate Perez being so underperforming? I haven't seen I haven't seen Red Bull so supportive and so tolerating of a driver who's performing that abysmal. Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, they got the boot. Albon got the boot in 1.5 seasons. If I remove some of the good parts of 2022 and the good parts of 21, that is in itself a cumulative 1 season, which leaves 2.5 seasons of Sergio Perez. He's been purely awful. And yes, the weather conditions in qualifying, it was damp, the track was damp, and he rode the curb, he caught the damp patch, and that caused that crash. So, fair enough. Even Martin Brundle said that it wasn't completely his fault. But then, besides him, it was only Yuki Tsunoda. And in Silverstone, it was only him. So, this is an awful, awful trend that's going on, that when such tricky conditions come in, why is it only Sergio Perez who crashes out? Why is it only him? Why do other drivers somehow manage to keep it out the barriers? And Perez is the one who's in the gravel or in the barriers. And even about Tsunoda, it was the final few minutes of Q3 when Tsunoda's crashed. That is like the peak moment of qualifying. Here is Sergio Perez crashing out in Q1. Since Monaco last year, that has been the trend. He crashes out in Q1 itself, and that is no way excusable. So, no wonder there have been rumors about his axing and everything, that Red Bull may replace him after the summer break. Absolutely, there will be rumors because his performance has been abysmal. To be fair, in the race, he did well, and the races are always, they have always been his stronger point, I would say. Qualifying has never been his strength. Tire management, race pace, that's where Perez excels. But then he needs to have better qualifying to back Max Verstappen up. That's not happening. That just hasn't happened since China. And Red Bull's performance slump is also a factor in it. But given he is half a second behind Verstappen on average, when Verstappen's qualifying in the top 3, Perez is 16th and 17th. Even on pace, he would be in the bottom half of the top 10, or worse, in the bottom half of the table itself. The grid is so competitive this year. Perez can't afford being that behind to Verstappen. And again, McLaren have closed the gap. They might have managed the race in a horrible manner, but they still got a 1-2 maximum points, and they've closed the gap in the Constructors' Championship. They are only 51 points behind Red Bull. Before this weekend, it was 78. They were 78 points behind Red Bull, 7 points behind Ferrari. Now they have moved up to second, only 51 points behind Red Bull. So that is agonizingly close. 2 or 3 more races of McLaren outscoring Red Bull, and they are taking the championship lead. 2 races like Hungary, and they will take the championship lead. That's why I said heading into Baku and Singapore, McLaren could be leading the Constructors' Championship. If Perez doesn't perform well and Red Bull continue with their issues. So they definitely need to find pace, but even Perez needs to find form. And I don't know if he'll race until Baku or Singapore because if he fails to perform, if he has another crash in Belgium, or if he has any sort of issue in Belgium, that is not the team's fault. He's so not racing in Zandvoort. I don't see Checo racing in Zandvoort or Monza if he has a bad Belgian GP weekend. That will be a tough test for him. And Spa is a good track for him. He's done well in Spa often. So hopefully it sort of becomes a comeback race for Red Bull, for Verstappen, for Perez also. Because the way he's performing, Red Bull just can't afford to have a driver like him who consistently underperforms and doesn't score enough points so that they retain the championship lead. I did not predict Perez driving for Red Bull in 2025 in my driver market predictions. It may happen even before that. Who may replace him? Now that's a whole different chaos. That's a whole different discussion to have. There is no clear contenders there. I would say Liam Lawson. Lawson's the one who's the most likely, perhaps. They've given him a test and everything, but he hasn't impressed as much. And there may be a maturity thing there as well because they don't trust Sonoda. So do they trust Lawson? Maybe. Ricardo's definitely not a strong option there. They may consider him strong, but he's more of a stopgap though. But yeah, as I said, both McLaren and Red Bull have work to do. Well, to round it up, Piastri's first race win was all due to McLaren. They gave us drama and they have given us the fastest car. Finally, they can say that they have the fastest car without an ounce of doubt, saying that okay, maybe Red Bull have a faster car on certain types of circuit, etc., etc. No, McLaren have the fastest car, but still their driver management, their awful race strategy, it has tarnished Piastri's first win. It will always be like that, and it has become memorable for all the wrong reasons. Eventually, it all worked out well, but the sheer chaos and drama that has happened in that final stint, I don't think Oscar is going to forget that for his entire life. But yeah, just in case Lando Norris can eke out a championship battle, I said earlier, Piastri would lay down his life given what Norris has done for him. And I think those two will only strengthen their bond from here on. I hope so. There is no hard feelings from Norris's end because, yeah, he gave away a second race win. After waiting for so long, he won a race in Miami, and then for 6 races, he bottled about 3 or 4 race wins again. Now he's once again in the race lead, and he had to give it away for his teammate. So understandable that he would be frustrated. Anyone would be. But I think he realized that blunder that he was going to do before it was too late for him to mend. And yeah, that moment when he backed off, absolutely, I think that would age well if Norris wins the championship this year. I know it's a far-fetched thing. I have said that Verstappen has got it in the bag. I don't think that would still change. But just in case, Red Bull struggles even more in the second half of the season. And if Norris closes on Verstappen, it all works out for them. I think this moment, this race, the way Norris gave the lead back to Piastri, it will all age very well, despite him losing 7 points in this race. He definitely has the championship mindset. He just needs to stay calm under pressure, not make mistakes like Austria, and yeah, championship fight is on definitely. If he feels that he can crack down Verstappen, get that gap down, and challenge him for the championship, go for it, Lando Norris. His Hungarian GP heroics, that's what I would say. Oscar Piastri owes him, and he will definitely reap the rewards of it, I would say. So let's see what happens. Red Bull have work to do, McLaren have work to do, but the tables have turned. The tables have turned and the championship is on. And I hope that McLaren take a huge learning from this mess in Hungary. Because if they don't, we are going to see the most epic fumble of a championship despite having the fastest car. 11 races, a lot can happen in 11 races. They need to sort the execution out, they need to sort their strategy out, and they can win this championship. At least the constructors, if not the drivers. They can do it. So let's see what happens in Belgium. But I think McLaren would still be the team to beat. And it's just next weekend, so that's going to be fun. I hope we see a good Belgian GP because we haven't seen a good race in Belgium for a while now. But yeah, that's all from my end in this Hungarian GP review. Where Oscar Piastri has finally won a Grand Prix, not a sprint race. He's won a Grand Prix and at one of my favorite tracks, so that has made it extra special. Let's see what happens in Belgium. Can McLaren make it 2 in 2? I hope so. But yeah, until then, arigato and stay tuned.